Welcome into the Paul Farrington Show. Paul, joined by Jack Weinberger and Robert Ziggy Ziegler at the University of Virginia for an NFL Power Rankings and over/underreaction show. If you guys are enjoying this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I slipped up a little bit there, so it's all over the place.
You're good. Hey, it's late at night. I got no glasses. I got no visor. We're all a little tired here. But
if you're enjoying, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you can't watch on YouTube, you can always listen on audio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please go and follow us at Paul Farrington Show on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all social media platforms we're on. So, okay. Set it off the top. We have overreactions and underreactions. It's the second part of the show. We're going to start off with the NFL Power Rankings. Last week, to catch up everybody who may have forgotten, in case you're not, every single week staying up to date on our Power Rankings and tracking them throughout the games.
I don't know why you wouldn't be, because our Power Rankings have actually been great this season.
Recently, they've been pretty good. So last week, I put the Commanders at 10. Jack put the Seahawks at 9. Ziggy goes Steelers at 8. I put the Ravens at 7, Jack, Vikings at 6, Ziggy, Chiefs at 5. The Vikings may have heard Jack putting them at 6.
Yeah, I think they did.
Slandering them a bit. I put the Packers at 4, Bills go to 3 for Jack, Ziggy put the Eagles at 2, and then I put the Lions at 1. That was last week's rankings, and I started it off. So today, in case anyone's unfamiliar with how we do these rankings, they're the joint power rankings, so we go one at a time, going 10 to 1. Jack will start today. We'll do the best we can to get the best list, but you have to remember, we have different lists. So usually there's some sort of confusion along the way. A lot of times on the back end towards like that 7 to 10 range. So Jack, an important selection at number 10. Who are you going with?
You don't know how bad I want to put the Chiefs here at number 10. Like, I'm just so anti-Chiefs. I do not
keep winning though.
I do not believe they're very good, like, at all. But I'm going to put the Chargers at 10. The team who should have just beat the Chiefs but lost to the Chiefs. Clearly a playoff team. Always tough to go into Arrowhead, like we've said a million times. That place is spooky, it's haunted, it's weird. There's black magic happens there, just like Pittsburgh. Tough place to go in there and win, especially at night. Without their top running back and top receiver. Should have won the game. Again, Chiefs black magic prevails once again. But I got the Chargers, top 10 team for sure. Justin Herbert is Justin Herbert. And they're sliding in at number 10.
I'm cool with this. So far.
Yeah, that's not exactly who I have at 10. I have them just outside, but I think that's a very reasonable pick.
All right, Ziggy, 9.
At number 9, I'm putting a team that I'm not sure is all that good. But, the thing you said at the top 10, it's so hard because so many teams have been up and down. So I'm just picking a team that has won every single game they were supposed to win and lost every single game they were supposed to lose. I'm slotting in the Denver Broncos here. They play good, solid football. Bo Nix has looked very good. Is this their first time in the top 10?
Since Jack put them in back in like week 2 or week 3.
But if you look at what they've done, right, they've got 5 losses. Their losses are to the Chiefs, Ravens, Chargers, Steelers, and Seahawks, right? All teams that are probably better than them. Otherwise, they've won every single game they've played. Like the Broncos have just played solid football. And when it feels like every team is losing games they shouldn't, I've just got to put in the Broncos for playing decent football for most of the year. And they could go even higher if Bo Nix continues to play well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. The Broncos, they're my team. I love those boys. I think Bo Nix can win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'm all for it.
I don't think he will, but he'll be second.
I'm all for it. I like the pick.
You also said, that they've lost every single game that they're supposed to lose, and they've won every game that they're supposed to win. They've also come pretty damn close to winning a few of those games they were supposed to lose. Like that Chiefs game comes down to a blocked kick. Earlier in the year at Seattle, week 1, Bo Nix's first start, that goes 26-20. Now, Seattle was in control most of the game, but they were close there. And the Ravens game, they wound up getting blown out. But the first half of that, if you go watch it, Denver had ample opportunities to make that a close game, to take a lead going into halftime. I think they had a couple an interception or two, turnover on downs, but we're very close. Like competitive first half with the Ravens. I think it's a great selection, Ziggy. I didn't have them at 9 or in my top 10, just outside. But I think if there was ever a week to really put them in, despite having a bye, the Broncos are playing really good football at the moment. I like it.
Yeah, Denver. Denver too. Like I'm a fan of Bo Nix. The 7 seed is theirs to lose, and they weren't even supposed to be close to sniffing the playoffs this year. Like they're over exceeding expectations for sure. I think they probably get a playoff berth, which is
if they beat the Colts, they're probably going to the playoffs,
which is like more than what that fan base could have asked for this year.
How amazing is it that we start off this list and you have the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh year 1, the Broncos, Bo Nix rookie season as our they're two of our top 10 teams. The AFC West is going to have 3 of the top 10 teams on our list, assuming you guys
and maybe team 32.
Yeah, and maybe team 32. Okay,
The Chiefs.
So Chargers, then Broncos at 8. I'm going to stick with what I had last week. They had a bye this week. I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens, who have had the chance time and time again to cement their status as a top 5 team in the league, but slip up in weird spots. I still trust them. I trust Lamar Jackson to be great week in and week out. The defense is disappointed this year. That's a big difference from last season's team. And Ziggy, kudos to you. You predicted that this offseason with the departures that they had. You know, one of the biggest ones is Mike McDonald, and look what's going on in Seattle right now. As that team is ascending, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, you don't think Baltimore would love to have their defensive coordinator back. I'm going to put the Ravens here. The defense is big time concerning going into postseason play, but when you have Lamar Jackson, you're probably always going to be in that top 10.
Yeah, I was happy you put him here at 8 because Ziggy probably has him at like number 2 or 3 in his rankings.
I have him number 6. I do not have them all that high. I still think this is a very good team that can play well. But at this point, they've shown less than I think every single top 5 team. So I'm with you, Paul, in dropping them out of the top 5.
I agree as well. Yeah, I have Baltimore, I believe, 7.
All right. Speaking of 7.
Lucky number 7. You know, I wore my Little League jersey was number 7 because Ben Roethlisberger was number 7. People always would be like, oh, like, is that Mickey Mantle? Or I'm like, no, it's Big Ben Roethlisberger. And they'd always chuckle.
Yeah, why would they think that you were wearing a number based on a baseball player?
Right? I mean, like, come on. I know it was a baseball jersey.
Well, to be fair to you, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger was the most important number 7 in your life.
Oh, yeah, by far.
At the time.
I was wearing my baseball jersey. I was 10 years old. It's like, oh, Mickey Mantle? I'm like, who's that?
No, Big Ben.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Big Ben.
7, I'm putting the Chiefs at 7. Again, this team's 11-1, and people will 12-1 actually. And they're probably the number 1 seed in the AFC. But I watch this team and I see the Pittsburgh Steelers who were 12-0 and who lost in the first round of the playoffs. When I watch this team every week, that's what I'm seeing. And I do believe there's 6 teams better than they are if they played in a neutral field. So I'm going with Kansas City at 7.
The last time the Chiefs won by more than a touchdown, including overtime, was October 20th when they went to San Francisco and played the 49ers. And a lot of those games, I mean, they've played an easy schedule since then, right? They've played the Raiders twice, couldn't beat them by more than a score. Played the Panthers, played the Broncos, played the Chargers. I know going to Buffalo's tough, but they lost that. The Chiefs have not had, I think, a single impressive victory all season, except maybe, I think you can go back to week 1 against Baltimore. That was really the last time they had an impressive victory. I haven't seen a lot besides name brand that makes me want to put the Chiefs any higher than this. So I'm with you, Jack. I've actually got them exactly at 7 too.
There you go.
I had the Chiefs the lowest I've ranked them all season. I had them at 6 actually. And including them in the top 5 would have been like putting Alabama in the college football playoff. That's kind of how I'm viewing this.
I actually do think Bama should have got in, but that's for another day.
Yeah, we'll get into that later.
That's for another day.
The Chiefs in the top 5 though does feel similar in that regard of, hey, this is a big brand that's been really successful for a long time now, and they have the reputation of being winners, of getting the job done when it matters most. But right now, what are you seeing from them? Like what is the actual resume in front of you for this season? And for the Chiefs, until they lost, I wasn't going to move them from the top spot. But now that they've lost, I've let my clouded judgment clear up a little bit. And I see a team that is struggling in several areas, but they usually do find a way. So you can't kick them out of the top 10. They have to still be pretty high.
I mean, that'd be
they're playing well enough to win. It's just every team above them has played substantially better this season, except a team I have to put above them with my next pick.
Go for it.
This team actually has played better than the Steelers. I just don't think it's substantial. I don't mind them being ahead of Kansas City. You got to put the Steelers here. I'm sorry. It's I think the Steelers have actually, I've got them at 8 in my ranking, which is the highest they've been all season. I've been really impressed with what they've done. I said in our reaction show yesterday, I still want to see a little bit more consistency from them after how much bad stuff we saw from Russ last year. But every week they are going out and proving me wrong. The offense, even if it's not putting up the best numbers, they've finally got a guy who can pass the ball in big situations. They've got a defense that at least most weeks shows up. I think the Steelers team can make noise. I wish that they had a real chance to get the 1 seed, but the Chiefs have been too lucky. At this point, I think the Steelers are playing like a really good football team. They just haven't looked quite as good as the teams above them and haven't shown quite as much over the course of the whole season.
Go ahead, Jack. This is your team.
You know, I mean, I had
You
him.
can't be mad about 6. 6 is like a solid.
I had him at 2, but seeing them.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, so you had them at 2. Go.
Steelers and ahead of the Bills and the Eagles.
At least Jack's just like, he owns who he is.
I had him at 2, but I mean, to see him creep higher and higher up Ziggy's ranking week by week, I can't complain. So I'm just excited when we beat Philly to see where we go in his ranking then.
Yeah, if the Steelers go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles, which they haven't done since 1965, I don't know if you saw that.
It's not going to happen.
There's been 10 games since 1965. The Steelers have not beaten the Eagles, and I'm pretty sure the last 2 have been absolutely blowouts in 2022 and 2016.
I think we're going to get killed.
Killed?
Yeah.
But this would be a place there where the Steelers have been trying to prove it all year long. And I was looking at some interviews from players, and they're like, we know the schedule coming up. It's Philly, it's Baltimore, it's Kansas City. These are the best teams in the league. Go prove it here. And I think we're going to learn a lot about Pittsburgh from those next 3 games. If they go and play tough games, even if they lose all of them, but it's like down to the wire good football, Hopefully they can hang in there with the division, depending on how the Ravens play over the next few weeks. But if you get a home playoff game and you impress over the next couple weeks, then my opinion of the Steelers will be Super Bowl contender.
I mean, the only...
Actually, sorry.
Go ahead, you go.
I was going to say, I actually think for the Steelers team, I think it's a good thing that they've got a really hard schedule to close.
I do too.
Because at this point, they're locked into the playoffs. They're technically not mathematically in, but it would require them losing out and like 5 other teams winning all their games for them to lose, right? I mean, you need a ton of teams to get to 10 wins. So that's not going to happen. I think if you're the Steelers, it's really good. So many times they've played easy end of the year schedules, sort of squeaked above 500 and then went to play a good team and gotten obliterated. Getting a chance to sort of hone yourself against the best teams in the AFC and in the NFC to sort of work out the final kinks and get playing good football against good teams. I think for them, given that they've already won 10 games, they're firmly in the playoff picture. That if they just beat Baltimore, the division's locked. I think it's great for them to have a tough end of year schedule.
Yeah, man, I will say I believe ever since I've been alive, every game we've gotten into Philly, I watched the game. I'm like, my Lord, how do you beat this team? Like we've gone into Baltimore and we've beaten them. It's that game is just always close. Going into Philly, I've watched the Steelers in Philly, and it's just been murder.
Well, I mean, like the results since 2016 have been when the Steelers play the Eagles.
Yeah, I have a bad feeling. The Eagles
since
murder
2022, 35-13 at Philadelphia. At home, actually, they won 38-29 in 2020.
I remember that
2016,
game.
They went to Philadelphia 34-3. 2008, they went to Philadelphia 27-6.
You know, I mean, we get
when they go to Philadelphia,
you won the Super Bowl that year, didn't you?
Yes.
Oh wait,
no. Even great Steeler teams can go into Philly and just get trucked. So I have a horrible feeling. Like if I wasn't a Steeler fan, I would take Philly minus whatever points they're laying this week.
But the Steelers also have something to play for too. We're talking about it's good they have this tough end of schedule so that they're playing well, they're playing their their best football, they're locked in to end the year. The Steelers going for the 2 seed. Remember we talked about it? Would you rather have Baltimore or the Broncos
100%
in the first round, assuming you can't get the 1? Like there's something to play for Pittsburgh too. And then that second round game, I think that's, you don't want to look ahead too much, but if you're starting to think about the Super Bowl, that divisional round matchup against Buffalo with their loss to the Rams, that opens the door now for you to have that game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's a 35-point swing.
A 35, maybe more, maybe 50 point swing.
Maybe more.
and you're going to need it going against Josh Allen. Can you imagine Josh Allen coming to Pittsburgh and with that defense, that environment? He'll still be great, but it'll definitely be a hell of a lot tougher than
it's a winnable
you
game.
guys going to Buffalo. Okay, so Jack puts the Steelers at 6. Ziggy.
I put the Steelers at 6.
Oh, Ziggy, I'm sorry, puts the Steelers at 6. Just so used to Jack putting the Steelers high. So that brings it to me now. Top 5 here. I'm going to go with the Packers at 5. Good loss to the Lions, if there is such thing as a good loss, but you played well.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
You played well, and had a real chance there. If Jared Goff, if he doesn't get that handoff to David Montgomery with a minute left, whatever it was, I think they're probably winning that game with a game-winning field goal. First half didn't go their way. The Detroit Lions backups of backups dominated on defense, and then you saw the turn, and Jordan Love got going in that second half. That was more the Packers team that we were accustomed to seeing last year. I like Green Bay, and we're going to talk about them in the overreaction, underreaction segment. So I'll hold off a little bit more, but right now, 5 Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that. It really takes resilience. Green Bay shows that they're a top team in the league when you're on the road in Detroit, and what's a huge game for both teams, and you're down 2 possessions pretty early. Most teams, I do believe, just kind of can fold over and just lay to the ground. But
We've
Green
seen that
Bay
a million times of Detroit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They get a big lead, 2 scores early, and teams just give up.
But Green Bay, like not many other teams could do, takes that game wire to wire and has a 50-50 chance in the end to win the game. Yeah, I'm all for that pick.
I actually have them exactly at 5-2, Paul. So obviously I like it.
Look at that. All right, Jack, you go to 4.
Oh, I got 4. I mean, there's really only 4 teams left that you could name here, right? Let me piece them together in my head. I actually
Pittsburgh Steelers again.
see. I had the Steelers at 2, so it throws me off a little bit.
The computation's going on in Jack's head right now, crunching these numbers.
I'm crunching the numbers.
I don't know,
Give me a
Ziggy.
little hint, Jack.
I don't know, Ziggy. It might be a little early for that.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think. Like the Vikings really impressed me this past week. Nah, so I'm probably gonna still put them at. I don't know. I'm gonna put the Vikings at 4. Yeah,
Coward.
I'm gonna put the
I think that
Vikings.
might be the hardest Jack has thought in the history of this show.
I'm gonna put the Vikings at 4. The truth of the matter is, I actually didn't come with my own list. So I was just doing this based off of how it was gonna work out. But Minnesota is.
Glad to see you putting in the work.
Yeah, Minnesota is number 4. Again, I was impressed, but they impressed me for 1 quarter, not 4. And I do believe that Philly was in a sandwich type of spot, took Carolina lightly. So I'm not putting Minnesota over Philly quite yet, but it's close.
Do we get any points for taking like the Jaguars lightly though? On the road, like no credit to the Vikings.
Well, it depends. Who did you have like before that, after that?
We're coming off of
like that matters.
The Rams loss. We had Jacksonville, Tennessee, Chicago, all on the road, 3 straight road games.
Oh, so you were coming off a loss,
Off a bye.
off a bye.
No, sorry. Off the Detroit loss, right? Detroit, then the Rams, then Jaguars. I believe that's what it was.
Yeah.
So you had lost 2 games in a row.
We're 5-2.
And beat the Jags by 5.
By 5.
No.
No?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing. That has to be a 40-point game like the Lions did to them off back-to-back losses. But Vikings at 4.
I like the Vikings at 4. They looked great last week. Last week is why I moved them ahead of the Packers, even though I've pretty consistently had the Packers ahead of them. I have more trust in Josh Allen than Sam Darnold. That's really what this comes down to. Josh Allen has had a lot of years in the league where he's been incredible. He's had so many incredible moments. Sam Darnold, we're just a couple weeks. I mean, he had a bad stretch of games, a medium stretch of games. Last week against the Falcons was great. It made me believe it was really excellent performance from him. I'm very happy with it. But Josh Allen has just shown more. He beat Kansas City. That's why for now, even though last week raised some real red flags for me about the Bills, the way that, not just that they lost, but the way they lost, the defense, the clock management, whatever, the Vikings, I think, slot right here in at 4. Though, I'll tell you what, going to Seattle, hosting the Packers, going to Detroit, they'll get an opportunity to climb to number 1 if they want.
Oh, the Vikings do have a chance to climb to number 1, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, they'd have a real
I think
shot.
the Vikings are the worst team, like the lowest ranked team with a chance to be number one at the end of the season, barring something unbelievable.
That might be the Steelers.
Steelers could. That's not a bad point from Jack. It could be the
That actually
Steelers.
might be the Steelers.
Steelers win out.
If the Steelers went out, what would that be? 14.
You
And,
might not jump Detroit. You don't control your own destiny to the 1 seed in our power rankings.
Minnesota controls its own destiny.
right, because they play Detroit.
Yeah, because they can unseat Detroit, and I think I would have them jump Philly if they went into Detroit and beat Detroit. The
Especially
Vikings.
if they went into Seattle and won and beat the Packers at home in the 2 weeks before.
Like if we win now, that's a win at Philly. We jump them. Win at Baltimore. Beat the Chiefs. I mean, that's got to be number 2.
So,
It-
Ziggy, do you have the Bills at 3? That's what it sounded like.
yes, I do.
Okay.
I came down to the
Yeah.
Vikings and the Eagles for 4.
Oh, okay. All right. So Ziggy, you had Bills at 3. I'll put the Eagles at 2, and Jack, you'll put the Lions at 1.
Lions at 1, yeah.
Okay. I think the conversation around the Bills has been. I've just got a little tired of hearing it. We're recording on Monday. I've got a little tired of hearing this whole, Josh Allen had one of the best performances ever. The team let him down. Like, I mean, yeah, they lost a shootout in LA to Stafford. Like, it happens. You know, it happens. Why don't we jump in then? And we may as well jump into our over-under reactions here. Our first one that we're going to get into is McDermott and the Bills defense will hold Buffalo back from a Super Bowl. Is that an overreaction or an underreaction? Ziggy, how about you first on this?
In some sense, I mean, I think it's an underreaction because this has already happened. Will is in the future tense. I don't know. We've seen it so many times with the Bills. Any Bills fan will tell you this since McDermott has gotten there. He's been a good head coach. But there are a few games every year where he makes a baffling clock management decision. It's happened twice this year, right? Against the Texans and against the Rams. Those games go differently. What have we got? We've got a Buffalo team that's 12-1 and in a great spot to get the 1 seed because they beat KC. I think if you don't get that 1 seed in the AFC, it is very, very hard to go to a Super Bowl. So I'm willing to say, in some sense, I wonder if it's an underreaction because I feel like it's already happened this season. It's already happened in previous seasons. But I'm going to say I think it's right on the money. I can't see Buffalo winning a Super Bowl as long as they're prone to meltdowns like this, because KC is going to take advantage of it. Baltimore might take advantage of it. The Steelers might take advantage of it. We've seen it so many times.
I love you with the Steelers in there. That's fantastic.
I mean, if there's a team to take advantage of like random misfires from the opponent and capitalizing into an improbable win, it's you guys.
That is true, 100%. I'm going to say it's an overreaction because we did see what happened with the Bills in Baltimore and in LA, and that's startling for sure. But both those teams have a tendency once or twice a season to do that. I just think the Bills might have to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I completely agree with you.
But the AFC this year, how it's shaping up, in the past when Buffalo has lost, it's been to a sick Chiefs team with Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and a prime Travis Kelce, a team who seemed unstoppable. The Bengals, who seemed unstoppable. The way this year's shaping up in the AFC, I do not think it's going to be the Bills' defense that holds them back because I just don't see anybody who can beat the hell out of you offensively in the playoffs, especially because Buffalo is probably going to be the number 2 seed and host everybody besides Kansas City. Like, I don't see Baltimore beating the hell out of them in Buffalo. There's no like amazing Joe Burrow or the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they're vulnerable. I think it'll be a bad game from Josh Allen and the offense that would hold them back. I don't think it'll be the defense.
Yeah, I think this is completely an overreaction right now. And Bills fans will probably say, hey, we know this team better. Shut up. I'm tired of the defensive woes. I'm tired of McDermott's mistakes. When we get to the playoffs, watch, it'll cost us. But, I mean, come on. Like, this season in particular, Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. He's playing better football than Patrick Mahomes right now. He's playing better football than Lamar Jackson. He is the MVP. You have the best player on the planet at the moment. The defense, generally speaking, has been okay. You haven't gotten ran out of the building since Baltimore, way back, week 4 in the season. I think you're right, Jack. Every now and then, Stafford, Puka, Cooper Kupp, these guys, they have a game where they're just unstoppable. They're one of the best offenses in the league. They did it to the Vikings, too. Maybe not as many points, but they marched up and down the field on one of the best defenses in the league in that game. It happens. Well, could it cost them? Like, yeah, there's a chance that they play the Ravens or the Chiefs in the playoffs and one of those quarterbacks has a great game. Like, that can happen. But I think as far as costing the Bills a Super Bowl, this is the best chance that they've had. And to say that one game in LA against one of the best quarterbacks getting hot is reason to panic and put things up in fire, I think it's totally an overreaction. Readjust, come back next week, and beat the Lions. That's how you shut everyone up.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything costs them in the playoffs, it would be a subpar game from Josh Allen.
That's what they need. Yeah, and unfortunately for Josh, that's all on his shoulders.
If he goes into machine mode, there's nobody in the AFC who will beat them.
Well, that's the thing though.
With the way it looks right now,
Josh Allen has these games this is where Bills fans. Now I'm kind of playing devil's advocate against myself, but this is where Bills fans will object because what is it in games where he's had 400 or more yards? They're like 2-4. So I can't remember what exactly the stat is, but games when Josh Allen goes into that Superman mode, the Bills fans have watched their team lose those games. Remember, think of all the Chiefs playoffs games. He's amazing. And the Bills find a way to lose a lot of those games. And that just doesn't, I think Mahomes is like 14-2 or something in games when he has over 400 yards. It's just a crazy record. That's what it should be. And for the Bills, it's not. So I understand why you're worried, Buffalo fans, but to say you're not confident that you could go win a Super Bowl because of McDermott and the defense, I think is pretty dumb this year. You have a good shot. I get it, Ziggy. I get it. It's just
we'll see.
Yeah. All right, let's go on, Jack. How about this one for you? Kirk Cousins will not be the starter in Atlanta to begin next season.
Yeah, is there any in between option?
Well, I mean,
I'm gonna say overreaction just because of. Doesn't he have like you just gave him such a bag in that
$184 million?
Yeah, you gave him such a bag in that contract. I mean, it's the first year at the new team. I'd have a very, very hard time if after one season, if they finish about 500, he's not their starting quarterback next year. I think he's underperforming and is underwhelming for sure. But after what you paid him, I mean, if they can find their way to going 9-8, I don't think Penix is the starter next year.
Well, they've got the Raiders, the Giants, the Commanders, and the Panthers left. That's got to be like 3-1.
So that should be 9-8.
Yeah,
like if the Falcons finish 9-8, Kirk's underwhelming for most of the year. Yeah. After giving him that bag, though, he'll start next year. I'm going to say overreaction.
Ziggy?
I think it's right on targets. I think if the Falcons had lost one more game, I'm not sure Kirk would have finished the season. I think this is going to be a Russell Wilson type end. Look, it's Kirk Cousins they gave him a silly contract. We didn't know how healthy he was going to be coming out of that Achilles. I think it's very obvious when you look at the Falcons offense. Kirk Cousins is a guy who has always thrived on play action. That's been where he's made his whole career. And he's just not mobile enough to run a lot of play action anymore. The kinds of play action you can run, those formations you can do it out of, the Falcons have just not been able to get what they want out of him. And at a certain point, Michael Penix is not getting any younger. They drafted him. He was already an older-ish guy. He's getting older every year. At the end of next year, there's a very easy out of Kirk Cousins' contract. It'll cost them some money, but they'll do it. I think by midpoint next season, Kirk Cousins isn't starting, and Michael Penix is being brought in as the future of the franchise to see what they got.
So starting next season, you think it's Cousins?
Sorry, I thought you meant starting for the whole season next season.
No, who's the starter week one?
I think it'll probably be Kirk, but I think there will be a clear plan to replace him week one.
Is it crazy to say, I'm of the opinion right now that if they go and lose to the Raiders on Monday Night Football,
I mean, that changes everything.
I think Penix will go in
that
Kirk
game.
Cousins is not guaranteed the rest of the season.
Yeah, no. The next week when they host the Giants, I think Penix starts December 22nd if they lose to the Raiders. If Kirk plays poorly and they lose to the Raiders, and the Raiders defense has been a little frisky, I think there's a good chance that Penix could start that game. And look, in the offseason, maybe we have a competition. I'm not sure if Kirk loses it, he'll never get it back at the start of the season. Maybe you just finish with Penix and see what he's got. But I really think Kirk's in jeopardy. Like right now, he's had 4 straight games without a touchdown. 2 interceptions against the Vikings, 4 against the Chargers, pick against the Broncos, pick against the Saints. On the other hand, the 2 weeks before that, he had like 500 yards of offense and 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. So Kirk hasn't always, like, he's had some great moments this year. The Bucs game at home, that Thursday night game when he had 500 yards, unbelievable. Went into Philly, beat the Eagles, game-winning drive. So I think it's an overreaction to just say, yeah, he's done, we'll never start again. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish this season with the way he's looking.
I mean, and you wonder, is there something going on at home with the wife? They're fighting? Something weird.
My money
They
on
loved
it.
Minnesota, man.
Yeah.
I think Kirk starts next season in Atlanta. But I agree with you, Ziggy. If it's not off to a good start, he will get replaced very quickly.
Is Kirk in the doghouse?
It's a short leash.
Is he in the doghouse back at home?
He's in the
wonder
doghouse.
He's in the
He is.
doghouse everywhere.
Everywhere. Could be everywhere. Okay, we got a couple more here. Let's go with the Eagles' passing attack will cost them in the playoffs. So to fill you in a little bit, Jalen Hurts, only 108 yards against the Panthers. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's one good thing over the past couple of weeks where the Eagles' passing offense has come into question. Jalen hasn't been turning the football over the way that he was last year. Those were some of the big concerns. It's just that guys like A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, these stud wide receivers legitimately aren't getting the ball. A.J. Brown came out. They said, what do you need to fix on the offense? He just goes passing after the game. He didn't get a target or no catches until the 2-minute warning in the first half against the Panthers. Like, he's too good to not get the ball to. Devontae Smith talked about the problems. It's more of that the stars aren't getting the football and Hurts is a little indecisive holding on to it. And that's a better problem than turning it over, I would say. Ziggy, let's go to you first.
Well, did you hear what Brandon Graham came out and said today?
No, I didn't.
So Brandon Graham, team captain, knows these guys really well, has been a huge leader. He said that about Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, they used to be friends, but things have changed now.
Really? Wait.
Yeah, here's the full quote.
What?
I don't know the whole story, but I know that that's Jalen Hurts is trying. 11, A.J. Brown could be a little bit better of how he responds to things. They were friends, but now things have changed. And I understand that because life happens, but on the business side, we got to make sure we don't let the personal get in the way of business. And that's where we need to do better. That's Brandon Graham, team captain.
Why would he come out and why would he ever say that?
It means that it's out of control internally, right? A.J. Brown is throwing a fit. They're trying to get things like this is a Hail Mary for that relationship publicly. Like, you know how bad things have to be for you to start saying these guys on our team used to be friends, but now they hate each other to the media.
I bet you Jalen Hurts, Brandon Graham, and A.J. Brown right now are all out grabbing a beer, laughing at that. I think they're totally fine.
I do not.
This might be a big spoof.
I think Eagles fans had better hope that, but they say, like, usually you don't get these kinds of problems when a team is 11-2, when they're one of the best teams in the NFL, when they're on top of the world. The fact the relationships seem this bad when they're playing this well makes me think that it's an issue that's not going to get resolved this season or ever. I think it's right on the money. It's with this kind of discord brewing internally, it's very hard for me to see things coming together. And I just can't see Saquon Barkley taking the team to the Super Bowl on his own.
That's almost too ridiculous of a statement from Brandon Graham for me to actually believe it to be true.
I think it's just
like, what is he doing?
If it is true that the Eagles are like a bunch of middle schoolers right now and everyone's throwing a fit, I'm totally out on them. Totally out. I don't care if there's a professional side. I'm 100% out on the Eagles if they're actually internally fighting.
I think it's all.
Is there always some sort of shit going on with the Eagles? Like they're always.
I don't know what the problem is.
I think it's all a big hoax, and they're totally fine.
Is it just Sirianni's like playing like lunch aid in there, and he's walking around? They're like, oh, we hate this guy too. It's very strange.
Dan Campbell's on that team, there's no problems internally.
Kevin O'Connell's on that team, no problems internally.
Something is telling me
Kevin O'Connell would get A.J. Brown 1,000 yards a game.
Yeah.
Something is telling me that the Eagles might clean a lot of things up this week at home against the Steelers.
Yeah, right. If this is a good week for a team to rebound from all these problems, A.J. Brown's going to have 170.
Oh, he's going to go crazy.
He's going to have 170 in the first quarter.
I mean, number one receivers, you look back to last year too, they light the Steelers up.
Or Hurts just ices him out if he hates him that much.
I'm still going to say overreaction, though. I think this team is just too good. Whatever's going on will be fixed. I don't know if anything's going on really, but I think the reason Philly will not make it to the Super Bowl is because Detroit's just better and they'll be at home. That's what I think.
The statement the Eagles passing attack will cost them. I think that's an overreaction as well. And frankly,
usually it's the other way around. Usually it's you guys reacting and me saying it's an overreaction.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're buying into the drama now. You're totally in.
I will say this. The Steelers, by yards per carry, have the 5th best run defense in the entire NFL. They go into Philadelphia, stop Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts can't get the ball out. The Steelers' defense is running at him, getting sacks, and they lose that game. The team might just implode.
If George Pickens plays, I think the Steelers win.
No, it's going to be bad.
If Pickens plays,
you guys have a possibility to end the Eagles season next week.
I'm telling you, it's going to be bad.
Is Pickens is out, right? He's probably out.
I know the Steelers like nobody else knows. I've watched them for 25 years. This is going to be bad. What's going to happen to us in Philly? Really, really, really bad.
Yeah, you've been pretty on lately. You predicted the Browns loss in Cleveland.
I said we'd lose to the Browns.
You predicted the Ravens win.
I said we'd kill the Browns back at home.
Yep, you were on that.
I know when this team tends to show up when they don't. Philly is going to beat us pretty badly. Mark my words. If I wasn't a huge fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'd be on Philly minus whatever the points they're laying.
I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too. I hope I'm wrong also. I'm rooting hard for Pittsburgh.
Jalen Hurts is such a bizarre case to me. I can't tell.
Barkley's gonna just have a field day.
Well,
Brown's gonna have 180. Things will be fixed in Philadelphia after this week.
Straight up, is Jalen Hurts has not been a superstar quarterback for.
But then I can also
a
see
year and a half now.
We'll pressure him, but he'll escape and run and use his legs. Like they're gonna score.
I know, but do you view Jalen Hurts as a superstar still?
Yeah,
I think I do too.
He seems 11-2.
No, I know they're always good. They're always good, but then you hear these problems that they're having, and
you know how you know that what Brandon Graham said was true?
How?
Is Tim McManus, an Eagles beat reporter, spoke of him afterwards, and Brandon Graham apologized and said I was making some assumptions and I made the situation look worse than it is, and now I've got it all wrong and people are running around with it. People like you coming out and apologizing immediately after you say it. He said, I just want to win, man. I just want brothers to be able to hash it out. I'm going to go apologize to both of them for what I said. It's legit, man. The building is on fire.
But they're going to kill us this week.
And they'll be kumbaya.
No, they'll go
on the sideline.
They're going to win like 34-7 and everything will be totally fine next week. I mark my words right now.
Okay, we have a couple more.
We can go back to this quote.
The overreaction, underreaction. The Vikings are legitimate Super Bowl contenders.
Dude, that's no overreaction. They suck. No. Yeah, I'm going to say for sure. What are they now? They're sitting there at 12-2?
11-2.
11-2. I mean, they've took Detroit down to the wire. Sam Darnold's looking like the most valuable player in the league. I mean, at least at least top 5. The receiving core looks like one of the best receiving cores in the league. 2 superstar weapons in Addison and Justin Jefferson. Defense is probably top 5. How can you say they're not a contender?
Let's Jack, go. Oh, sorry, finish your thought.
Well, it stinks you're going to have to go, on the road and ultimately back to back in Detroit and Philly. But that's not going to sway me off of saying that they're a contender.
I want to play a game with you real quick, Jack. Pick your player, Sam Darnold.
Oh, you want to play a game?
Sam Darnold or Patrick Mahomes?
Right now?
Right now.
Like currently?
Currently.
Sam Darnold.
Josh Allen.
Lamar
Jackson.
Sam Darnold.
Joe Burrow.
Sam Darnold.
Justin Herbert.
Probably Justin Herbert.
Jalen Hurts.
Probably Sam Darnold.
Jaden Daniels.
Sam Darnold.
Jordan Love. Come on.
Sam Darnold.
CJ Stroud.
Sam Darnold.
All right, so this guy, it's the MVP conversation all over.
He has his team at 11-2.
Who do you rather have at running back, Darnold or Barkley?
I don't care about running backs, but okay. I do think a lot of that is like Darnold utilizing the weapons that he has. I mean, he's got a plethora, and he's doing a great job.
I'm gonna put that as a reel. You might be flamed more than any human to ever be on TikTok.
How can you say you wouldn't take Darnold? You wouldn't take him over Mahomes right now? Darnold's so much better than Mahomes currently.
Well, I mean, if you put Mahomes
with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison,
that'd be pretty I mean, could you? We would go undefeated.
I think Mahomes. I think Tyreek Hill made him. We can move. Let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the. Let's move on to the next.
Let's get off Jack.
What is he? A 2-time Super Bowl champion without Tyreek Hill?
He hasn't looked as good.
yeah, but he's won 2 Super Bowls.
No, it's an overreaction.
Really?
I don't think it is.
I mean, I know Jack is willing to set aside what the NFC looks like. I am not. The Vikings are getting a wild card spot, almost certainly. That means the only way that we're winning a Super Bowl is, I know there's a chance technically win the division. I don't buy it. I think Detroit's winning this division. That means the only way we win the Super Bowl is by going on the road, probably to Atlanta or whatever. We can win that. But then you got to go on the road to Philly. You got to go on the road to Detroit, and then you've got to actually win the thing against the Chiefs or the Steelers, whoever comes out of the AFC. Buffalo.
Yes, they keep saying
this. You've gotten to me. But can Sam Darnold put together 4 games where he plays, doesn't make any substantial mistakes, and is able to beat some of the best teams in football? I think he can do 2. I think there's even a chance he can do 3. I do not think Sam Darnold's going to put together 4 excellent games in a row. And that's what you need to win a Super Bowl. That's why the Chiefs have been able to do it. Mahomes just doesn't have bad games in the playoffs. Not really. Besides that horrific Super Bowl loss to the Buccaneers. But I'm telling you, if we make the Super Bowl, that's what it's going to look like with Sam Darnold. So no, I don't think the Vikings are Super Bowl contenders. I think they can win a couple playoff games in the NFC. But I think the gap between them and the best teams is just too big.
I'm kind of getting Nick Foles vibes from Sam Darnold, though. No one really thinks he can do it, but he can do it.
But that's the thing about Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold's 27 years old. People are talking about. I talked with my boss today about the Vikings. The Vikings this season, and we were saying that the Vikings this year, they're not the 2009 Vikings who should have won the Super Bowl with Brett Favre. They were one of the best teams in the league. They were the best team in the league that year. The 2022 Vikings, with all the fluky comeback wins and the worst defense in the league, never had a chance to win the Super Bowl. They're kind of like the 2017 Vikings, who were very good and were capable of winning the Super Bowl with Case Keenum, and wound up getting crushed by the Eagles and then Foles on that magical run that he had. But when we're talking about comparing when we're talking about comparing Darnold to Foles or to Keenum, those were 2 legitimate older journeymen. Darnold's a journeyman who's 27. He's a year older than me and you.
I mean, also too though, why would you not believe? Just he's been bad in the past.
That's the reason for most people.
I truly believe in Black Cloud franchise. Look at Aaron Rodgers. He's 3-10 on the Jets.
Well, no, but that place is what I'm saying about Darnold.
That place is a hellhole. Darnold found a home and now he's good.
Is that if Darnold had been playing for 12 years and been all over the place, and then came to the Vikings, I'd say, okay, he's having an electric season.
But he's on the Jets and the Panthers.
He's 27, hasn't started for multiple years, was part of 2 of the worst run organizations in the sport.
Yeah.
And now is thriving with a great coach and great weapons. And hey, maybe he was just 1, in bad situations, and 2, a bit of a late bloomer too. He's 27 years old. Sometimes it takes. Jordan Love is 25 when he started playing. Jordan Love was much worse in his first couple starts than he was the final 10 games. It happened.
Oh, I'm buying Sam Darnold.
And I'm not saying Darnold's, the next top 10 quarterback in the league, but what I am saying is that for everybody who's just discounting him because he's Sam Darnold, there's a lot of information that you could present to them and say, hey, this guy is playing well, and he's in the first opportunity he's really had to succeed. And maybe that's just who he is.
I'm also a late bloomer too. I don't think I had pit hair until I was 18.
I'll say I think I think they are legitimate Super Bowl contenders, but I completely understand Ziggy's point as well. I don't expect them to go to the Super Bowl if they have to beat Philly and beat the Lions on the road. I think they can give those 2 teams a hell of a fight in those games, but unless they're able to find a way to the division, I do have a hard time seeing them actually getting there. But I have to consider them contenders with the way they're playing. We have 2 more to wrap up the show, okay? No one wants to play the Rams in the playoffs.
I'd say this is probably a little bit of an overreaction. I know this team did go into Detroit last year and they hung tough with them. Stafford's always scary. Nakua's scary. I just think the team is very inconsistent, and teams like Detroit or Philly or Green Bay or Minnesota, teams that are better than the Rams would be able to capitalize. Like, I don't see the Rams playing 3 or 4 straight solid games, especially on the road against higher level teams. So that's over. I mean, I'd say compared to other teams, yeah. Then you can say I'd rather see.
No, but I think this falls into the category of like you're scared to play the Rams, and I'm not scared to play.
I would not be scared to play the Rams, but no,
I don't really want to.
I'd say over.
But the same way I don't want to play Seattle. Like I'm scared to go into Philly. I'm not. Not scared to go into Seattle with the Rams. It's just I'd rather not.
If there's a playoff game in Philly and they're clicking and the Rams come to town, Philly feels pretty confident they're going to win that game. So I'd
Philly beat the Rams 37-20 on the road.
Yeah, I mean, so I'd say overreaction. I just think they're too inconsistent of a team to play in the playoffs in the row with the top dogs.
So I agree the Rams are not one of the best teams in football, but I think you have to look at the teams around them in the seeding to assess something like that. And like here are the teams like seeded similar to them in the NFC and the AFC. They're number 8, 7 and 9 in the NFC are the Commanders and the Falcons. 7, 8, 9 in the AFC are the Broncos, Colts, and Dolphins. I am much, much, much more scared of this Rams team than any of those other 5 teams.
Agree.
Why? Because like when Matthew Stafford and the offense are clicking, they can put up 44 on you and beat an on-fire Buffalo offense. They can go. The defense is not great, but they are one of the only teams that can go blow to blow with any offense in the NFL. They have no realistic Super Bowl chance. You're right, Jack. They can't do this for 3 or 4 games. But if they're going to Philadelphia, if they're going to Seattle, in the AFC, if they were going to Buffalo or to like Houston or something, I'd be scared of this team. Absolutely. Their offense, again, they don't do it every game, but when they're playing well, they can put up 40 on anybody. And no other team remotely close to them in seeding in the playoffs can do that. So I think when you're asking a question like that, you have to look like what's the comparison class? Like, would you rather play LA or Philly in the playoffs? We all know what the answer to that is. But among like those frisky wildcard teams, those are the teams no one wants to play. The Rams are the best.
Well, actually, I have a real question for you guys. Would you rather, if you're Detroit or Philly, okay, in the second round, would you rather have the Vikings or the Rams going into your building?
Well, I think if it's Detroit, it's Minnesota, because I don't want to see my old partner in crime in Stafford yet again when you've barely beat him the last 2 times. Like, it's hard to beat a team like that 3 times and then twice in the playoffs back-to-back years.
Let's pretend the Vikings lose a close one in Detroit. That'll be game 3 for the Vikings in Detroit.
I'd rather see Minnesota, your division opponent, than Stafford being an old lion who you beat last year in the playoffs.
How about
But the Vikings are the Rams of a good defense. Like, that's what this team is. So obviously I'm taking.
How about if you're Philly though?
Philly, I'd rather see probably rather see the Rams. A team from California coming to cold weather in the playoffs. I'd probably rather see the Rams.
Okay. All right. Ziggy, you're kind of laughing at that.
Yeah, I mean, I
guess Minnesota.
I'm sticking with it. The Vikings.
You guys
are
play in a dome,
with
so
a good defense.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
I just think it depends also to what team. Like, I think Detroit would be a little nervous to play the Rams. I don't think Philly would be.
Well, they've also played very tight games.
Again, Stafford's an old lion. I don't think Philly's scared of the Rams.
They're another one of those teams. I actually think that the Vikings, the Packers, the Rams, those are all teams to me. Those 3 specifically, if they go to Detroit, I think they like being in the dome, playing indoors. They have fast guys who run all over like Philadelphia wants you outside. Yeah, they want you in cold weather. They want to be able to pound the rock with Saquon, make you uncomfortable. And I think that it's better suited for teams like, and this is no shot at Detroit. This is just the environment. I think the Vikings, Packers, and Rams are better suited to play in. Really, actually, more so the Vikings and Rams than even Green Bay, because Green Bay's been leaning on Josh Jacobs. But I think, I really do think that matchup of the outdoor atmosphere in Philly versus the indoor one in Detroit is going to be. I'm excited to see how that plays out with who winds up getting those matchups. Because in some ways, the Packers are the 6 seed and the Vikings are the 5. I'd rather go to Detroit than go to Philly, and the Vikings would be going to Philly if they won. So, assuming the Vikings and Packers were victorious. Okay, we'll wrap up the show here with the last one. Speaking of the Green Bay Packers, the Packers are not on the same level as the Lions, Eagles, and Vikings in the NFC. And I'm putting the Vikings, I'm saying like the top 2 tiers, essentially, if you want to separate the Lions and Eagles from the Vikings.
The Packers are not on the same tier as, let's say, the Lions and the Eagles.
And the Vikings.
What?
I'm putting the Vikings in there too.
I think the Packers and Vikings are the same tier.
I mean, you're acting like the Packers haven't played the Eagles, Vikings, and Lions this year and played all those games with the exception of the Lions' home game disaster within a score, often coming down to the final possession.
What's the record? What's Packers' record in those 4 games?
Yeah, I don't.
What's the record?
No, I don't think that they're on the same tier as Detroit.
Or Philly?
Well, I think Detroit's better than Philly. Like,
okay, wait, what's your tier
Like,
again?
Detroit to me is in a tier alone by themselves. Then I have probably Philly, Minnesota, and Green Bay in the second.
Okay. So you do loop them into that same tier.
Yeah, but I don't like now with Detroit. I mean, they couldn't beat Detroit when Detroit was half hurt,
But Detroit's going to be half hurt the rest of the way.
and they still be. I think they're still better than Green Bay. is.
Okay. So Ziggy, you don't like the question.
No, I think the Packers have clearly shown they are on the same tier as the contenders in the NFC. Now, you're right, they haven't won it. And some people say that wins and losses are all that matter. And in the playoffs, that's true. When you're looking ahead and trying to predict what's going to happen, if you're going to the final drive against the Lions, if you're going to the final drive against the Vikings, if you're going to the final drive, I know like the Eagles had that game wrapped up, right? Jordan Love got hurt right at the end on like some crazy plays. But like the Packers had a chance for a comeback, and that was week 1 anyway. It's very hard for me not to look at this team and say that they could win in the playoffs. Obviously, it's going to be hard, but they're doing the kinds of things you want them to do. They're beating all the teams they're supposed to beat. The best teams, they're playing very, very close. And if a couple things break their way, they could do better. Now, if all of those losses were like the Vikings loss, right, where the Vikings get out to a giant lead and the Packers close the gap right at the end, that would be one thing. But they played this Lions team tough for most of the way. After a tough start, they got it back. They obliterated the 49ers. They obliterated the Dolphins, teams that I think are like a tier or 2 below them. No, I've clearly got this Packers team, and that's like 1A, 1B type tier. I think they're about as good as anyone.
Okay, yeah. So we're all in agreement because I'm with you as well. I'm just saying I was asking that question because before Packer Nation goes ape shit in the comments section.
It's too late. The comments are already flooded with "Go Pat, go! You guys suck."
Probably the reason I'm asking
the
that
unbiased show I love.
The reason I'm asking that is because I've been seeing a lot of Packers articles and Packers newsletters presenting that question and saying, hey, the teams we've lost to are the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Lions twice, the best teams in the conference. The teams we've beaten are the Colts, Titans, Rams without Puka and Cooper Kupp, the Cardinals, which is a very good win, but how good are the Cardinals, we'll see. The Texans, the Jaguars, the Bears on the block kick, the 49ers without Purdy, and the Dolphins in frigid temperature where Tua sucks. So I understand that people are looking at that schedule and saying we haven't beaten any of the good, like the really good teams that we've played. But my thought process on it, Ziggy, is similar to you. They were very, very close to beating Detroit. They were the second time. They were very, very close to beating Philadelphia. The Vikings kind of kicked their ass until the end of the game, until the fourth quarter. But yeah, like I think any game in the playoffs, I'd probably pick the Eagles to win at home. I'd probably pick Detroit to win at home. But it would not shock me if the Packers went to the Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, it's one thing if you're beating up on, I guess, subpar competition and then getting waxed by the tier above you. Mm-hmm. But to beat who they really should beat and then to play competitively with Detroit and Philly, yeah, it's tough to say they wouldn't be able to beat them. So I'd go Green Bay in that tier with Philly and the Vikings. I just think Detroit's a little bit better than all of them.
Well, I'll tell you, next week is really the test for them, right? They go to Seattle. And what we've seen at Seattle is the best teams in the NFL roll this Seahawks team. I mean, no disrespect to them. When the Seahawks went to Detroit, they got rolled. When the 49ers went to Seattle, they rolled them. When the Bills went to Seattle, they rolled them.
What do we think of the 49ers?
The 49ers decisively won that game. I'm not saying you have to win by a million, but it wasn't close.
I mean, they beat the 49ers in San Francisco a few weeks later.
Sure, but I'm saying like the 49ers team on October 10th was a lot better than the 49ers team on November 7th.
Fair enough.
When good teams have been able to go to Seattle and beat them, and the bad teams have lost. I mean, the Rams, the Rams were able to go in there and win in overtime when Cooper Kupp was back. It's been close, but the Seahawks, I think, have been like the tier differentiator. If you're really good, you should be able to beat them decisively. If you're mediocre, you might beat them, you might not. If you're bad, you'll get crushed by them. Like, that's just how the Seahawks.
I actually like your analogy, but I would just straight up draw it on win or lose, because the Lions with Seattle, that back and forth game, they couldn't stop Geno that game. I think that the Seahawks are the perfect line maybe to represent contender from pretender.
Yeah, they are.
That's a great point.
With the Packers going into Seattle next week, if they have a solid victory, like, I don't want to see them going to overtime. I don't want to see it being a last-second field goal. But if they decisively win the game, I don't care what the ultimate score differential is, but you know what I mean? Like, they control the game for 60 minutes, they get it done.
Yeah, they're the better team.
Then I'm going to, like, then we know this Packers team is legit, I think. If they can't, then I'm going to be really worried.
Well, you know what it is, too? It's where they're probably going to play in the playoffs as well. So we'll get a good indication of, hey, can they go into this place? Like, this is, in all likelihood, a first-round preview.
I'm very sold on Green Bay if they just go in there and win this game. Like, even if it's by a field goal.
But if the Packers lose, this is an interesting discussion. We'll have a full Packers-Seahawks preview. But if the Packers lose at Seattle, does that change your tune on them a bit?
Not really, because I think Seattle right now is playing well. And to play this Sunday night game in Seattle, it's the first game they've hosted at night on Sunday since 2021. I think it's a very good win to go in there and beat them. And if they lose, I do think Green Bay is going to lose.
I think this is a really important game for the mojo of the Packers.
Like, Seattle right now is a good team.
No, they're a very good team. But if Green Bay loses this, it's a little disheartening to have that loss to the Lions, to have that loss to the Seahawks. You know in the back of your mind, we're probably going back there in the playoffs. Like, this is the perfect spot to get going at the right time.
I think they're better off losing now than being a little hungrier in the playoffs when they play them again. That's just me.
I feel like a win here. Then they have the Vikings coming up in a few weeks. Like, the games are set for the Packers to get on another one of those runs going into the playoffs. But it's a hard.
I mean, I'm not
hard
if
game.
they lose. I think Seattle wins this game at home on Sunday Night Football.
They've got to get healthy for this game, right? Romeo Dobbs concussion protocol, Evan Williams concussion protocol, Javon Bullard still week to week. They need some of those guys back, I think, in order to beat Seattle. But it's Jordan Love's time. He's been playing like a top-tier quarterback since the bye week. He's been very, very good. But at a certain point, that's got to convert to wins. And this is the week when you say, we're playing a team, we should be better than them. We've got the pieces to win. It's important, as you said, Paul, for the mojo. This is the week for the Packers to get it done. If they can't get it done, they're officially pretenders. That's my opinion.
Wow. So you really are putting a lot of weight on the Seahawks game.
I disagree with that. So I think the Packers will lose. But I think if this game was in Green Bay at night, they win like 42-7.
Yeah, I think they crushed them in Green Bay.
Yeah. I just think Seattle wins this game close.
DK's also, he's been hurt lately. That's another thing to watch. Is Jair back?
They're playing well.
We'll get into the preview later. But
Seattle's playing well.
All right, there you have it. The power rankings and over/underreaction show heading into week 15 of the season. Ziggy, thanks for joining us from the University of Virginia.
By the way, if you're a Packers fan, go in the comments. Let us know what you think about the Seattle game. Is it a must win? Is it not a must win? It's like, we're just talking. We don't have the pulse on the fan base. I want to know.
It's not a must win.
Not a must win.
I think it is. I'm curious what they think. Because Packers, almost no one's been more critical of this team than Packers fans this season, it's felt like. You know, in the media, everybody's sort of excited about them. They're playing well. But you've seen Packers fans like bench Jordan Love, garbage quarterback. You've seen them freaking out over every loss.
Well, that's why I asked that
the
question.
Lions game, half of them said it was a ref ball. Half of them said it was, we're never going to win a big game.
I could see Seattle coming out at night in those like lime green jerseys and just kicking the Packers' ass.
Would you change your mind in a playoff game?
If the Seahawks beat them once already?
Yeah.
I think the Packers will be a little more fueled up, but no, in Seattle, I think Seattle will win that game. I think Seattle's good enough where them being at home propels them to win a playoff game at home.
Over Green Bay.
I mean, but Jack, don't forget, the Packers are bringing their whiteout jerseys to the Seattle Seahawks.
So Seattle will show up in lime green.
I'm taking the all white whiteouts.
Has Seattle lost at home in those lime green uniforms at night? Like ever? I'm curious to know their record.
How many times they've done that?
I don't know if they're wearing them. I'm just hoping they are.
All right. Well.
Oh, they're 4-0 wearing the all green action jerseys.
Are they wearing them?
They're literally undefeated.
No, they're gonna wear them. They're gonna wear them and blow the Packers away.
Oh no, they lost one. They lost to. They've lost one, but otherwise they're good.
I don't know if they're wearing them or not. I just think they would be.
They should.
Oh, remember
They
in
should.
2019 that Vikings nightmare in Seattle
Was that in
Which
the
one?
lime green?
Which one?
when we lost 37-30 in Seattle?
Was that the game where 2019? Was that when Dalvin Cook had the gigantic hole on 4th and 1 at the end of the game? He would have walked into the end zone.
Yep,
Was that game?
lime green.
There you go.
There's been a handful of Viking Seahawk nightmare games, but I believe that's the game where it's like 4th and 1, and there's the
That was the
aerial
game
shot.
where the only guy who could catch the ball was Laquan Treadwell.
Yeah, there's like the aerial view of Dalvin Cook running into 7 Seahawks when to the right of him is probably a 15-foot hole into the end zone, or at least for the first down. I don't know if that was the game. It might be a different one. I don't know. We'll have to go back and check. All right. We'll see you guys for the Week 15 preview and the Packers Seahawk preview as well.